guys. True Power Trumpet Fitness. Let's get going. We'll dispense with the fitness today. Okay, we'll go right to the trumpet. In essence, was my first assignment with the great William Vachiano. All I did was the first two measures of Arbin Characteristic Study number 1. But I was to do the entire thing for the week in all keys. That, in essence, is one of the things that Vachiano was all about. Vachiano the Magnificent. I will get to that in a minute. But, yeah, at the time that I studied with him, he had just retired from the New York Philharmonic after 38 years. Okay? And at that time, every single symphony in the entire country had at least one Vachiano student in it. Most of the symphonies, the entire trumpet section was Vachiano students. Now, back then, and certainly before then, they didn't have the gruesome audition process. The union wasn't that involved, where everybody, that wants to audition in the union has to have an audition. No, it was pretty much if somebody in Los Angeles or Spokane or whatever needed a trumpet player, and they were a student of Vachiano, they just call them up. And Vachiano, yeah, I got a guy here. I'll send him out Monday. He played a couple notes for the conductor, and he had the job. I mean, it wasn't the gruesome thing that we go through now. But with that said, he just owned the trumpet world at that time. Owned it. And it wasn't, believe it or not, it wasn't just the orchestral stuff. And I truly believe that he was the greatest orchestral teacher of all time. And I don't think there's even number 2. I don't think number 2 is even close. Teacher. I think Herseth was a better player than him. Teacher. He owned the trumpet world for about 40 years from his teaching. Okay? And like I just said, the way he infiltrated the entire structure of the orchestral system was absolutely amazing. Not only that, Miles Davis studied with him. Wynton Marsalis studied with him. Alan Rubin studied with him. Lou Soloff studied with him. These are two of the greatest commercial players that ever came down the pike. I mean, his effect was off the charts. And anybody that wanted to be a trumpet player at that time felt, well, at some point, it doesn't have to be at some point, I have to get to New York and study with Vachiano. Not only for the knowledge that he gave you, but the power. He's such a power broker. If you wanted to be on the stuff, you wanted to be a Vachiano student. It was as simple as that. Now, not only that, he was my uncle. Yeah, a distant uncle, no question, but absolutely an uncle. I grew up in Portland, Maine, right where he came from. My grandfather knew him very, very well. My grandfather was best friends with his brother, Milo Vachiano. And Bill would never come out and play. He never played sports or anything like that. He always just sitting by the stove in the kitchen and playing scales over and over and over. That's all he cared about was scales. And the computer mind of the transposition. Unbelievable. He came to New York out of high school initially with a full scholarship to go to St. John's for accounting. He was a genius. I mean, a real genius. You hear so much about, well, LeBron James is a genius or Yo-Yo Ma's a genius. Right? He was an absolute, his IQ was off the charts. Great mathematician. And when he didn't even go to St. John's. somebody said, they're auditioning up at Juilliard. You should go up. A friend of his that he was staying with from Maine, you should go up and take an audition. Played an audition for Max Schlossberg, and he was in, and the rest is history. And he told me he didn't, he was a bit of a character. He didn't even take any classes at Juilliard because he exempted out of it. The only thing he took, he exempted out of ear training, he exempted out of theory. He was obviously the best trumpet player in the city. He didn't have to go to anything. The only classes he took was orchestra and piano. And the only reason he took the piano is because he was dating the piano teacher. That's what he told me. Anyway, 38 years in the New York Philharmonic. Everything from Toscanini to Bruno Walter to Leonard Bernstein and everything in between. I mean, this guy's knowledge, not only the genius, his experience, his wisdom of on-the-job training was off the charts. Nobody could come close. Think about what I just said. Mahler fifth. Okay, well, if you're going to play this for Bernstein, he wants it this way. And if you're going to play this for Bruno Walter, you better have the deep mouthpiece because he wants the Germanic. I mean, the wealth that came at you was off the charts. Off the charts. And that was that. I will never forget my first lesson with Vachiano. It was at the Mannes School of Music, okay? And I found out what practice room he was going to be in. And I signed out the practice room right next to him all morning. My first lesson, I believe, was 11 o'clock. And I got there at 8:30 and signed out the practice and just practiced all day long next to him. Of course, he could hear me. And I was trying to impress the great Vachiano, okay? And what do when you're young and stupid and you want to impress somebody? You play high notes. Well, he thought high notes were for morons. Okay, anybody could do it. It's just a mouthpiece. Anyway, so I'm playing high notes. And I come in for my lesson. Salamoni. The guy's telling me that was you next door. Is that you playing all those high notes? Yep, that's me, baby. He says, what's your highest note? He says, well, I got a good F. I can play a G. Back at that time, that was a pretty big deal. Salamoni, I can open up this window. We're on the 3rd floor. Open up this window, throw out a brick. Chances are I'd hit somebody with a high F. You want to know how stupid I was? I stood up and looked out the window. I thought there was some trumpet player playing high notes out there. I want to see. I turned back. He's got he's going like this. That was my first lesson. He says, any moron can play high notes. He says, you got to be able to transpose. If you can't transpose, get out of town. Open up your album book. And the rest is history. That, believe me, is why I am an Arbin freak. All the keys, baby. You play Arbin and all the keys. That's what I got. Anyway, that's that. Anyway, my first year in New York with him, I was lucky in a way. Not lucky for him, but he was in the hospital. He was not well. I got taken care of, whatever it was. I don't know what it was. We didn't know. Actually, a bunch of us went up to see him in the hospital, and he was not doing well. And but he wanted to lighten his teaching load because of his illness, and he didn't want to dump students. So he worked out with Mel Broyles, who was the first trumpet player of the Metropolitan Opera, that he would take his students every other week. So in effect, Vachiano was cutting his workload into half and not dumping students, which, if you've watched any of my videos, you know what high regard I put Mel Broyles in. And that was only because Vachiano was not well. I probably would have never studied with him. But that's that. So I owe him a debt of gratitude. Actually, another thing, he thought chops was all about the mouthpiece. He had literally thousands of mouthpieces. All of them were wrecked. All of them were bored out and anviled out for the throat and all this sort of stuff. I never bought into that. It didn't work for me. It worked for some of the guys. It did not work for me. I had to change the actual musculature. And we used to argue a little bit about that. I was stupid. But that was that. Anyway, Vachiano the Magnificent. God bless him. He personally brought me to New York and got me started on my career playing. And certainly as a teacher, I every day use his concepts that he taught me 40 years ago and 45 years ago. Anyway, yeah, there's not much left of him playing on YouTube anymore. But he was a great one. He was an absolute great one. Anyway, God bless you, Bill. Love you. Okay, guys, hope you enjoyed it. Eat your fruits and vegetables and your kettlebell, and we'll see you next time.